Hello everyone, it's Annie and I'm here in my new apartment and I am finally almost done moving. I love my new apartment. I am hoping to maybe film an apartment tour once things are settled, and I'm just super happy with it right now. This is my living room and I am back with my July wrap-up. So I have a whole bunch of books to show you. Okay, so let's get started. All right, so first we actually have a really disappointing 3-star. So there were no DNFs, 2 or 1 stars in July for me, but We Ride Upon Sticks by Quanberry was a 3-star, and I have to be honest, I am really disappointed by that. I went into reading this hoping and expecting that it was going to be a 5-star for me, and it just wasn't. I read it because of Books and Lala's recommendation, because this is one of her favorite books of all time, and I just thought it was such an interesting concept. It is about the coastal town of Danvers, Massachusetts, which is where the accusations began that led to the 1692 Salem witch trials. And it is set in the 80s, and it follows a girls' field hockey team from that town, and they start to kind of do witchy rituals in order to start winning their games. And it's told in a very creative way. It's told using the we pronoun instead of I, or like third person point of view. It's told using we. Like it's not really weird in the context of the story. Like it makes sense. And I love the cover, but I didn't love the book. I feel like this would have been better as a novella, because I didn't really care about any of the characters. I guess because it was told in we, it wasn't easy to really get to know individual characters very much, and I just didn't really love them. And for me, characters are very important for enjoying a story. So I just didn't love this. It is a YA novel, so there's a lot of like teenage relationship drama in here as well, which I didn't really enjoy. I thought it was going to be witchier than it is, like a little bit of a darker tone, but it's not. It's definitely not. It's more of a high school drama with some weirdness, well, a lot of weirdness in it, rather than a witchy book. So it wasn't what I expected, which is why I'm giving it 3 stars. I did read the whole thing, I didn't DNF it, but it was a disappointment for me. The next book is Yellow Jessamine by Caitlin Starling, and this is a novella. It is a horror novella about, I don't know, which is why I gave it a 3-star. So it follows shipping magnate Evelyn, who controls the dying city of Delphinium with trade deals and secrets. But when mysterious sickness sparks death and obsession, all leading back to her, Evelyn's brittle existence is strained to breaking. She retreats to her estate amidst paranoia and poisonous secrets, intent on rooting out this plague before it destroys everything she has built. So yeah, it's gothic, it's atmospheric, the writing wasn't bad. I just felt like I wasn't very invested in it, and it was good, but it wasn't great. So 3 stars. It was a good little gothic novella, very dark and sapphic. Yes, it is sapphic, so that was a plus. If it wasn't sapphic, I probably wouldn't have even read it. But yeah, I do recommend this to anyone looking for a fun, well, I don't know if it's fun, but it was fun for me, gothic sapphic novella. And speaking of dark sapphic books, this is A Guide to the Dark, okay, by Miriam Matui. And this is a YA sapphic horror novel. And this is a book that I was pretty highly anticipating, although I have been burned in the past by YA horror, so I wasn't super sure whether I would love it. And I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. I liked it. I was invested. I do have some complaints, but the story goes that there are these 2 girls who are kind of going on a cross-country road trip in order to scope out the colleges that they've both applied to, and they're very close. One of them is hopelessly in love with the other, and it's a pretty good dynamic. One of my complaints is that while this book is dual POV, the voices of both girls are very, very similar. So sometimes I did get them confused, which is kind of bad, especially if they're supposed to be a romantic relationship in there. I did find myself getting their stories confused a little bit because the voices are so similar. I loved the creepy hotel that they stayed at. That is the setting of this story. So they stay in a creepy hotel after their car breaks down. They stay in room 9, where a lot of people have died in the past, and there's something sinister about room 9. And I really did like there's a little bit of paranormal stuff going on. It's not just like human horror. There's a little bit of paranormal stuff going on, which I really liked. I did really like one girl had a backstory where her brother drowned when she went back to Tunisia with her family. Her brother drowned in the ocean, and that's kind of really informing her personality, that trauma of that. And I really liked it. I listened to it on audio, and I did hear that there are real photographs in the book of what are supposed to be the characters that the author herself took, which is really cool. I did not see those because I listened to it on audio via NetGalley. Because one of the characters in this book is a photographer, like that's what she wants to go to school for. So I thought that's a pretty cool detail. I thought this was cute. I wasn't super convinced about the romance, but it wasn't super central to the story. The romance itself, the girl who is super obsessed with her best friend is very toxically jealous about basically her best friend talking to anyone else ever and making any other friends, which kind of rubbed me the wrong way, which is mainly why I'm rating it lowly at a 3, but I did enjoy the horror elements, and I'm definitely going to check out more from Mariam Matudi. Next, we have Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo, which was a book that I also was highly anticipating and only gave a 3. Elizabeth Acevedo is very well known for her amazing YA contemporary books like Clap When You Land, which I gave 5 stars. That was amazing. And also Sapphic. This book was not Sapphic, unfortunately. This is Elizabeth Acevedo's first adult book, so her adult debut. And I liked it, but I didn't really feel that invested in it. I don't know. There were a lot of points of views. That was my first problem with it. So the story goes that this woman can see death in her dreams. Like she has prophetic dreams, and she can dream when someone is going to die. And she suddenly calls up her sisters and says that she wants to hold a living wake for herself. And so, of course, they assume that she has dreamt her own death and she's going to die soon. And the book is about the preparation of this living wake. So the living wake doesn't happen until like the last couple chapters of the book. And I didn't love most of the characters. I loved one of the sisters. Her name was Pastora, and she and Flora, who is the sister who can dream about death, had a very, very interesting and strong sisterly relationship. And I really loved Pastora's story and her relationship with her sister Flora. And I really wish that the book had had a stronger emphasis on their story, because I think that was the strongest point of view and the strongest little vignette in the story itself. I didn't really love the daughters of the sisters and their stories. I wasn't super invested in them. However, I really did enjoy the last 30% of the book, because that's when things really started to happen with the living wake and things kind of started coming to a climax. And I really did enjoy the last 30%. But the book was too long. Like, I wish that last 30% had been more like, not in the beginning because we need exposition, but you know what I mean? Like, I wish I didn't have to wait for that last 30% to get really, really good. You know what I mean? So that was my opinion about Family Lore. I feel like a lot of people have similar opinions to it, that because we loved Elizabeth Acevedo's YA book so much, we had really high expectations for her adult debut, and it just didn't live up to our expectations, but such is life. And then the last 3-star is Falling Bodies by Rebecca Roanhorse. So I read 2 other short stories. This is a short story. It's part of the Far Reaches series, which is Amazon's sci-fi short story series. I read the short story by Ann Leckie and Nnedi Okorafor, both for the same series. And my friend was reading Falling Bodies, so I was like, all right, I liked Rebecca Roanhorse's debut fantasy, so I'm like, I'll check it out. And it was just fine. It was fine. It was a short story, a sci-fi short story. So, Light Years from Home, it is Ira's second chance, just another anonymous student at a space station university, not the orphan whose Earther heritage was erased, not some social experiment put on display by his adoptive father, not the criminal recruited by the human rebels. But when Ira's loyalties clash once again, 2 wars break one, on the ground, and one within himself. Which will Ira stand with, and which will take him down? So basically, Ira is an Earther, and he was adopted by this senator who is part of the race of aliens who conquered Earth and all of Earth's colonies. And he grew up with these conquerors, and so he feels very conflicted about his loyalties, whether he is loyal to his family or whether he's loyal to being an Earther. And that's all I'm going to say because it's a short story, no spoilers. I don't know. It was fine. I think Nnedi Okorafor and Ann Leckie had much better short stories for this series, but I think it was interesting. It was a good little short story sci-fi. Now, we have the 3.5 stars. First is The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi. And this is a big book. Okay, I listened to it on audio. I only got this to film the video, and it was okay. I have never read anything by Shannon Chakraborty before. I know that City of Brass, I think the first one is called, is very, very popular, but also she has some controversy with her. I also know that this is super, super well received. Like, this is a very popular fantasy. And with good reason, it was good. The main character is Amina al-Sirafi, and she should be content. After a storied and scandalous career as one of the Indian Ocean's most notorious pirates. Let me stop you right there. I love books about lady pirates, okay? I love it. I love it. She survived backstabbing rogues, vengeful merchant princes, several husbands, and one actual demon, and now has retired peacefully with her family. Okay, she is a mother. She is middle-aged and she has a young daughter. She is a mother, and that's very important to the story, which I also love. But when she has been tracked down by the obscenely wealthy mother of a former crewman of hers, she's offered a job no bandit could refuse: retrieve her comrade's kidnapped daughter for a kingly sum. The chance to have one last adventure with her crew, do right by an old friend, and win a fortune that will secure her family's future forever? It seems like such an obvious choice that it must be God's will. So Amina is also Muslim, and that also plays a really big part in the story, which I also love. Yet, the deeper Amina dives, the more it becomes alarmingly clear there's more to this job, and the girl's disappearance than she was led to believe. For there's always risk in wanting to become a legend, to seize one last chance at glory, to savor just a bit more power, and the price might be your very soul. So I really like this book. There is trans representation in a pretty major character, which I thought was really awesome. Amina's character was really cool, but something that really grated on me was her thoughts about men. They were like constant. She's like, wow, look at that sexy hunk of a man. Like, I want to take him to bed. And I was like, all right, like, tone it down. I don't want to read about it because it's not relatable. Like, okay, that is a me problem. I understand that. But I liked Amina as a character. I just don't think I liked this book enough. I wasn't invested enough. Like, I read this on audio and I stopped about 60% of the way through and took a big break of a few days, which I never do really with books. So I wasn't super invested in where the story was going. I think it definitely could have been shorter. There felt like there was a lot of repetition. But it was enjoyable and definitely good if you like pirate fantasies. Okay, the next and last 3.5 is a sequel. It is The Legacy of Yang Chen by F.C. Yi, which is the second book in the Yang Chen duology, I guess. F.C. Yi wrote the Kyoshi novels, which were absolutely stunning, amazing, 10 out of 10, loved those novels. Then he also wrote The Dawn of Yang Chen, which is about an airbender avatar. And I really disliked, let's say, the first book, The Dawn of Yang Chen, because it focused so much on Yang Chen's kind of companion. His name is Kavik and he's a waterbender. And the book should have been called The Dawn of Kavik because it really did not focus on Yang Chen at all. I think it really did her a disservice. This second book definitely took those complaints into consideration, and it was much more about Yang Chen, which is great because I love Yang Chen as a character, very interesting. Not as interesting as Kyoshi, which I think lies the problem. Yang Chen's story, it has great politics, but I just don't think it's enough to carry a duology. I don't know, maybe that's just my opinion. I felt it was interesting, and of course I'm going to continue reading any Avatar novels that are put out there. This was definitely an improvement on the first book because it focused so much more on Yang Chen herself, but it just wasn't as interesting to me as I would have hoped. So we'll see what FCE comes out with next for Avatar. So now we have the 4 stars. First is Mother Thing by Ainsley Hogarth, which I picked up on a whim. I really have been feeling like I want to read some more spooky books now. We're getting into Summerween, and I loved this. It was really, really fun. So when Ralph and Abby Lamb move in with Ralph's mother, Laura, Abby hopes it's just what she and her mother-in-law need to finally connect. After a traumatic childhood, Abby is desperate for a mother figure, especially now that she and Ralph are trying to become parents themselves. Abby just has so much love to give. But Laura isn't interested in bonding with her daughter-in-law. She's cruel, especially to Abby, and life with her is hellish. When Laura takes her own life, her ghost starts to haunt Abby and Ralph in very different ways. Ralph is plunged into depression and Abby is terrorized by a force intent on destroying everything she loves. I'll stop right there. I went into this knowing nothing, and every turn of the page was a surprise. It was so good. There's cannibalism, there's really messed up stuff, there's a lot of exploration of mother trauma, which is awesome. This is such a great book. And anyone who's looking for a spooky, like, family horror thriller kind of thing should absolutely pick this up. The cover really is exactly the story. Because when Laura commits suicide, Abby steals the ring from her finger. And this kind of haunts Abby throughout the whole book. And I thought it was really clever, just the way that the author weaves everything together and kind of shows Abby's mental downfall. I just really, really loved this book. It was very, very engaging, and I loved it. Next is a sapphic western new release called Lucky Red, and I really loved this as well. It's about a girl with red hair who I am forgetting her name, Bridget. She, through a series of unfortunate events, becomes a prostitute in a brothel in a, Wild West town. And I really loved the other girls that she becomes friends with there and interacts with there in the brothel. I love that there was no shame in what she was doing. It was just a fact. And I really loved how it was sapphic, okay? However, it deals with sapphic heartbreak really, really well. Like, this book is so good to read if you're sapphic in any way, and it just deals with sapphic heartbreak really, really well. And I just love Bridget as a character. I think she was a really strong, very multifaceted character, as well as her side friends, like the side characters. They were all very well developed. And I didn't really love the ending though. That's why this is a 4 and not a 5. The ending left me a little bit unsatisfied, but I think that other people would really like it. It was just a great book. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but if you're looking for a really something different, because I've never really read any gay Western, let alone a sapphic Western, and I just think that this was so unique and so good. It was really engaging the entire time, and I loved it, so you should read it. Next, we have a nonfiction, which it's been a minute since I've read a nonfiction on my channel. It's Over My Dead Body, which is about the burial practices and cemeteries in America. And it was very interesting. This is definitely, the spooky vibe that I have been feeling lately. I really love nonfiction books about death, apparently. It was very interesting. I think that because I have read a lot of other nonfiction books about death and burials and stuff, a lot of it was a little bit repetitive for me, but it was good. I enjoyed it. And there's really not much else to say about it, except that if you're interested in cemeteries, funeral practices, or anything like that, you should read it, because it was interesting and it was a very good, let's say, introduction to the subject for people who maybe haven't dived so deep into it before. I thought it was very well done. And the cover is really, really well designed as well. I love it. Okay, last 4-star, which now that I'm thinking about it might be a 4.5, is The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina, and I love this. It was magical realism. I, for some reason, had the intense urge to read this book this month, so I had to go for it. I absolutely loved it, especially her, Orquídea, okay? So the Montoyas are used to a life without explanations. They know better than to ask why the pantry never seems to run low, or why their matriarch won't ever leave their home in Four Rivers. But when Orquídea Divina invites them to her funeral and to collect their inheritance, they hope to learn the secret that she has held on to so tightly. Instead, Orquídea has transformed into a ceiba tree, her limbs stretching into roots and branches, leaving them with more questions than answers. 7 years later, her gifts have manifested in different ways for Marimar, Ray, and Rhiannon, granting them unexpected blessings and powers. But soon, a hidden figure begins to tear through their family tree, picking them off one by one as it seeks to destroy Orquídea's line. Determined to save what's left of their family and uncover the truth behind their inheritance, her descendants travel to Ecuador, to the place where Orquídea buried her secrets and broken promises and never looked back. I really love magical realism in here and a lot of the floral and nature motifs in here. I will say the reason why it's not a 5 for me is because I loved Orquídea and her story in here, the flashbacks and all the chapters where she is in it. I didn't love her descendants. Every time it was their point of view, I was like, take me back to Orquídea, like, I don't care. So I think their point of view chapters and their stories were a little bit weaker, although I understand why they needed to be there. I just really wish that the whole story could have been just about Orquídea and her not really adventures, but her life story. So I loved that. But the story is about her descendants. I didn't love so much. So this is like a 4 or 4.5 for me. Absolutely worth the read. I don't know why I waited this long to read this, but it is a beautiful, beautiful story and absolutely amazing. I highly recommend this. Okay, now we're on to the 5 stars. So first I read Heartstopper. I read all 4 volumes that are currently out. I only have the first one in physical. I loved it. Of course I loved it. Like, come on. If you don't know what Heartstopper is somehow and have been living under a rock, it is a YA story about 2 boys falling in love. And it's so good. It's so good. I don't know why I waited this long to read it. It is so, so good. Me and my girlfriend have watched the first season on Netflix, and actually, happily, the second season is coming out this week, which is awesome. So great timing for me. I love Nick and Charlie. They're so cute and pure, and just their love is so good. And it's just a heartwarming story with a lot of commentary on mental health and bullying, and just, it's so good. I love it. Yeah, don't be like me and wait. You're gonna love it. It all the hype is warranted, okay? It's Heartstopper, all right? It's 5 stars. It's amazing. It's a great graphic novel, okay? If you read it online, it is free to read online. That's what I did mostly, but the story that is published has a little bit of color in it, and online it's totally black and white. So if you want to get it physically, you get that. And I love it. Look at them. They're so cute. Nick and Charlie. Okay, so obviously I loved it. And let's go now to my favorite book of the month. Oh, Chickpea wants to say hello. Say hi, Chickpea. Say hi. You don't want to say hi? Okay. I'm sorry. All right, let's go to my favorite book of the month. Sorry, Chickpea. Okay. All right, my favorite book was The Splinter in the Sky by Kemi Ashingiwa. I was very graciously sent an ARC of this book by Kemi, and I loved it. It was so good. Okay, I could talk about this book, gush about this book for literal hours, so I'll save you that. But this was so good. This was literally everything I could possibly have wanted in a space opera. Queer representation. Really, really good queer representation, okay? The main character is sapphic. They have a non-binary sibling, okay? There's just queerness all over, and it's glorious. Okay, anti-colonialist themes, amazing. We love that in a space opera. Really, really interesting world building, politics. So well developed. Kemi, how does your brain do this? It's just, I'm so jealous, okay? I loved the world building in here. And tea, okay? The main character has a tea hobby / fledgling tea business. And tea is a very, very big part of her life. And any space opera that has tea as a big plot point, it's for me. It's like this book was written for me, okay? This is a new favorite. 100%. If you liked Ancillary Justice by Anne Leckie or A Memory Called Empire by Arcady Martine, you would love this, because those are my 2 favorite books in the whole wide world. And you would love this. Okay, there's such interesting espionage going on and just really nail-biting scenes, and I absolutely loved the main character, Enitan. She's a really, really great character to kind of learn about the world through her eyes. But the character that really stole the show for me is the Imperator, whose name is Menket, and she is the ruler of the Holy Valberon Empire, who is kind of this all-conquering empire who has conquered Enitan's little moon. And Enitan is kidnapped and kind of forced to live on the Valberon homeworld, which is the Splinter in the Sky. It's like this cool splinter-shaped space station. It's so cool, Kemi. How do you think about that? How do you come up with that? I loved it. I loved everything about it, okay? The main gist of the story is that Enitan's sibling, Xiang, gets either murdered or kidnapped. She isn't sure which at first, and she wants to try and infiltrate the Empire to find out where they are. And that's all I'm telling you, because that's all you need to know. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love Enitan. You're gonna love all the characters, all the world building. If you are looking for a really, really good, really amazing new space opera to really sink your teeth into, you need this book. It is stunning. Loved it. 11 out of 10. All right, and that is it for my July wrap up. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel for more bookish videos, and I'll see you next time. Bye.